So, hi everybody, this is little commentaries on this little painting I did a few days ago, acrylic paint on paper. I use Liquitex acrylic. They're pretty cool, very intense, a bit more expensive than your average acrylic, but well worth it. And the pigments, the actual color is very cool, and it lasts for a very long time. I did my comic books called Kit Lepict entirely with Liquitex. It was just the best. I tried everything, and the problem with acrylic, the advantage with acrylic is that it doesn't stink, so you can paint in your home. Don't make a smell in the entire house. You just use water as a medium. And they dry quite quickly, so that's a very cool advantage. So you can put layers of things, and change your mind and repaint on top quite quickly, as opposed to oil. But the inconvenience is they do damage your brushes. So I discovered a few years ago, well, I say a few years ago, it's probably like 20 years ago now, that if you use a dishwashing soap, like your liquid that you wash your dishes with, you can actually make your brushes last much longer. And so every time I between two colors, I will wash the brush with dishwashing soap. And at the end of every day, every painting, I'll wash them again in cold water. Don't use hot water, because hot water will bake it into the brush. And that way your brushes last like 10 times longer. It's really cool little detail. Now, my way of painting is I like stuff that moves and action, adventure, and I don't like to copy photos. I like sometimes to use reference, but never to literally copy a reference photo. So I would look at, say, something that I've never seen or haven't seen for a while, like, say, a hippopotamus, something like that, and I will look at it in different photos, then close the reference, and then draw it from imagination. That's just the way I like to do things. I don't like to literally copy whatever was in a photo, because it doesn't interest me more than that. And I've done a lot of sketches from life and some from photos a long time ago, but I try to memorize everything so I can draw. Nothing better for me than to work from your imagination. I try to memorize as many things as I can and refresh my mind all the time. Even though you think you know something, it's never too late to kind of go back and relearn endlessly, put it back into your mind. And so drawing this little boy there on his horse, and the horse, everything's all imagination. Just remembering the beginning of Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade. There's these scouts kind of uniform. Always like these old-fashioned uniforms with the suspenders, the boots, the hats. Very elegant, I found, and kind of green on kind of brown horse. Normally, I tell my students to not draw something front-on, because front-on is a bit hard to see what's going on in terms of creature design or anything. But if you have a good reason, you can obviously break the rules. So this is what I did there. I thought, I'm going to do this like a horse coming towards the camera, and the guy on it, and they're going quite fast. Is the thing I like the most is probably painting action, movements, all that kind of thing, transmitting life. Even when I do digital paintings, is the thing I'm looking for, not so much the super clean kind of cold render. I respect that, there are people who can do that beautifully, and I used to do that when I was concept designing for films, and you need to kind of design something like a weapon, and it needs to be ultra clean so that someone could then build it, in the workshop, and they know there's no hesitation. You can't do speed painting for that. In fact, speed painting doesn't exist in the film industry, from my experience. I've never seen it used. You can do a quick speed paint to show your art director, but then they will tell you, now you need to polish that up, and photoreal, it needs to look like a photo so that the director can see what's going on before it gets approved. But when you're free in your own time, which is what I like, I cannot prefer it when it's more sort of emotional, and this is why I like these artists that have that kind of like, Ashley Wood and whoever, the people who can paint and leave the paint, do its little thing by itself, if you will, and discover into the unknown. So even when I was a concept artist, the phase I liked the best was not so much the polishing phase, although that could be enjoyable, but it was the forging into the unknown, just going in, having no idea. You're being given a brief by an art director, and this is this movie you're working on, and find ideas. And then you just go from your imagination. You look at some reference, but you don't copy that. You use them as a base, and then you start imagining the craziest ideas. Love that. Yeah, just forging into the unknown. So this is what I do there. It's very relaxing because I don't feel I have to. This is just a painting for me, so I don't have to give anything to anybody. The art director is me in that image. You may have noticed that I've changed the arm position. Like in the sketch, it was down, and then I repainted it, put it up. It's another thing I tell my students is something you don't particularly like. Don't feel you have to stick to it because you decided a long time ago. Just let the painting leave. Decide for yourself. For example, his left leg there is a bit too short compared to the right one. I thought the right one was quite cool lengthwise. I know it's perspective and foreshortening, but even then it looked a little too small on the right hand side and too big. So I did repaint it a little bit later. Like I started polishing it, and then I had to repaint it to make it a bit longer. There is a phase that I've lost in the middle of this painting. I put a camera on top of me and see how it goes. On the left there's my painting. There's the dishwashing soap in a little bowl and some water. This was painted in about 2-3 sessions. Like I painted at home this first session there, and then finished it or continued when I was at university. I could paint with the students, kind of inspire them. And then finished it here, so you'll see a third phase a bit later. This film is sped up about 10 times. It's like 10 times faster than I would paint. So yeah, it's slowish. I mean, I can be quite fast, but for this particular painting, I took my time. And yeah, like I said, just pure imagination, and everything has to have life. So if you paint a tree, it has to be my style. It has to be a Frank tree. If you paint a horse, it has to be a Frank horse. So I've drawn horses and people for a very long time now, maybe 40 years or something. So I kind of know how to draw a horse in my style, in all direction, jumping from the back, from the front. I always try to push them towards a little bit more realism, which is something I sometimes nail. But because I'm so in love with life and movements, it reverts often to slightly caricatured, or not caricatured, but stylized vision, if you will. It still is realistic, but it is sort of sideways from that. A lot of people, when they see my paintings, they often say, "Oh yeah, you copied Frank Frazetta," or something like that. I never copied any artists ever. I did look at Frank Frazetta in the evening before going to sleep when I was younger. Just analyzed the painting, looked at them intensely, but never ever copied. Took a photo and then of his paintings and copied it. But the thing is, people think it's just Frank Frazetta because he's so famous, but actually, the one that influenced me almost more than Frank Frazetta was this French artist called Pierre Joubert. And Pierre Joubert, if you type in his name on Google, you will see what I mean. This painting that I'm doing there, and you look at a Pierre Joubert painting, and you'll see that it has more to do with that, than obviously this one doesn't look much like a Frank Frazetta because it's not fantasy, but my other paintings, often people say, "Hey, it looks like Frazetta, etc." I don't take it as an insult, I find it's quite cool, but I just like people to know that I've never ever copied that. And it'd be like Jeff Jones has copied Frank Frazetta, and Bernie Wrightson has copied Frank Frazetta, and it's like there's only one person that invented everything, and everybody else is just a bad copier. It's a bit like saying, I don't know, Howard, N.C. Wyeth and Howard Pyle were like copying. N.C. Wyeth copied Howard Pyle, etc., etc. It makes no sense to me. People have a kind of a style, and it fits in this sort of golden age or high fantasy or something like that. And that doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, whatever you do, you will do your own personal take. I think that's personally that's what I think. So I will not ever I don't think my style really looked like Frank Frazetta. When you look at it, some of my other paintings that people say Frazetta, if you look at the Frazetta, it has absolutely nothing to do with it in terms of the style, the colors, the everything. And again, I absolutely respect and adore all these artists, these great artists. They're the best thing for inspiration. And Frazetta, the thing that he had was life, like movements, which is exactly what I was obsessing with. Just moving things, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I always tell that to my students. It has to be reasonably good, that it gives enough info that when you look at an image, it strikes you as something that is plausible. And you can get away with murder. You can get away with things that don't make sense. Like this perspective is not completely right, or the lighting doesn't make sense, or this or that. The design, if it looks cool and it transports you there. I think that art is an endeavor that needs to transport you into another world. Like in a fraction of a second, it needs to kind of appeal to you immediately, and it doesn't have to be dead. Well, some people can do that very well with super polished, clean artwork. I would describe my vision or my way of painting as more like sculpting. So I think of things as kind of shapes, and slowly build up and change my idea. Like if you imagine you were not painting but putting clay on some wire, and then adding, removing. So when you look at my digital paintings, it's like that. I use a very big brush stroke, then I refine it, kind of make it smaller, and then cut bits and add bits. Here, because it's not digital, I had to do a little pencil sketch, so I knew where I was going. But I'm still digging into the image, creating depth and shadows, and sort of building things from a sort of average light everywhere to slowly getting into detail. I could have polished that, even more and refined it, but I consider that at some point it's enough. Like, things need to keep a little bit of imperfection so that it sort of touches you as a piece of work, if you will. Again, everybody can do what they want. People have different ideas, and I will never criticize any other artist, because that's their thing. I'm just explaining what works for me and what I'm trying to do there. The table that I'm working on there is a table I made. I ended up making all my table. There's a light box underneath. Like, I made a hole inside the board, and it's at a 30-degree angle. So the table is not flat, but it's sort of a slight angle. So where the paint is on the left there is on another triangular thing. Maybe I'll take a photo at some point and explain it, but it took me a long time to get all that sorted so that it fits my personality. There's nothing better than to be all well set up and to paint. I didn't want to buy anything. I just like to build my own things. Now I can paint anywhere. I used to paint in cafes and restaurants, and I always carry sketchbooks with me with pen and inks. Even watercolor. I have like a little bag where I grab the watercolor, acrylic, and I find that the art of painting all day long, all the time, it's not so much that it's like how would I say, you have to do it. Some of my students say, I need to practice. I don't need to practice. I just love to practice, if you know what I mean. This is like punishment. I need to practice so I get better. You don't need to practice. You just have to have that always with you, and just every time you have 5 minutes, half an hour, do a sketch, do a little drawing. I believe in small but all the time, as opposed to, you will see this Saturday I'll do this big painting. You'll see Saturday, I'm not feeling it today, but Saturday I'll do it. Normally Saturday arrives, and you have the dishwasher breaks, or some friends you haven't seen for 6 months knock at the door, or someone is sick, you have to run and help them, whatever. Something happens and Saturday goes. So that's why you need to literally steal your time and do a little sketch all the time, like a little bit of a something artistic every day, and then you'll feel better. And you have something else to do. You have to clean up the room, you have to pick up the kids, whatever. First do a little painting, then you can do the other thing. And there's a lot of other things. There was one of those guru guy, a la Tony, whatever his name is, who said something. You know, when you watch all these talk shows and they forget just about everything that they say, but this guy said, if you don't fill your day with things you want to do, your day will be filled with things you don't want to do. And I always remember that because it just stuck with me. Like, okay, I'm going to make sure that in every day I live, there is something I want to do. And so I can't, even if it's a tiny sketch, a tiny something, I'm really tired. I'm just been working all day, driving, everything. Difficulties, life. If there's a little bit of a drawing, then it's not a day that is lost for me. That's how I think. And obviously, the best days are the ones where you can just do what you want to do. But those are rare, you know. When you're working, you have to pay this and pay that, and then just normal life, you know, clean up, make food, etc., etc. Take care of the whole house, your ladies, your kid, etc., etc. So here you can see painting a sort of mid-range color on everything and putting some details, but not too much. I just painted the left boot because I knew it was quite good. The right one, you can see I've sort of left a little bit loose, and his right hand also is a little bit loose. But I was happy to have put it up because I thought it will work better if it's in terms of silhouettes, if it's like that. And the horse is coming towards us, so his head is kind of towards us in a perspective thing, and then his legs are just below, kind of going away from us. And perspective like that in a front-on thing is quite hard to do. But I kind of felt I want to see the underneath of the boots and the front of the horse and the top of the horse's feet. So it's all in perspective, and also the gun is coming towards us. And that's the idea behind this whole thing. I paint with like a sort of average brownish color. Now you can see I use sort of the basic colors on the acrylic paint there on the left. Can't really see it because I zoomed in a little bit to show the image a bit better. But it's primary colors. I use like I think it's blue, cerulean blue, or sometimes it's called primary blue. I think this one is called cerulean blue. There's yellow. Well, yellow is easy to find. Red, cameo red, and black, white. And I use also cobalt, which is a different blue, because I always like that the feel that and purple cobalt is quite hard to do with these primary colors. So that's my only exception to those the basic primary colors, and I make all the colors from that. Some of the colors that you see there, you'd think to make a shadow when you want to paint shadows, you just add black, but I don't necessarily just add black. I sometimes, let's say I'm doing a shadow for an orange thing, I will put like purple, like cobalt, to make the shadow, so it's slightly richer and different. Maybe cobalt and red, on the orange, and then slowly go like that, and only use black towards the end, like when I want. Okay, the eyes need to be black because that's like an important thing of this little horse there, and then some of the details need to be black, and then the white, same thing. Too much white is also kind of heavy going. And I don't mind leaving the brushstroke have their life. You can see when I paint that the brushstrokes are kind of describing something. They're describing the volume. It's the importance of the brushstroke is a thing I always tell my students. You don't just feel a space like you would do if you were painting walls. I used to be a painter, like painted factories and kitchens and things like that, and that's where you want no trace of anything, so you roll in a certain way to make it disappear. But here it's the opposite. I kind of create structure and volume, and I think the way I use my brush will also describe the volume that I'm describing. And so in your head, you're thinking, okay, this is the horse hair or the horse mane. I need to have a light touch and imagine that horse hair. And then if it's the muscle of the horse, I need to think about the muscle of the horse, the volume. Like I say, a bit like sculpting, you know, this is painting, but it feels like a sculpture, if you will. So very soon at about, 15 minutes in, 20 minutes in, there will be a change of image, which is what I had to kind of change, stop and do something else and then come back. This painting, like I said, it was about 3 settings. A lot of the time it's just one setting. I just start somewhere, just keep painting until I finished, and then I can do something else. Yeah, you can see there this little brush, the way I kind of describe the muscles. I'm adding a little bit of blue on top of this orange, so that creates depth, and it's the primary or the contrast, if you will. Yeah, I painted the background blue, like a bit of purple. You can see the mess on the left-hand side there. 21 minutes in, and the idea wasn't that it was going to be a dark blue like that or grey blue, but I was going to paint some yellow orange on top to separate the character. But I just wanted to create a sort of a mess. Some people do that. It's called I can't remember what it's called, when you paint the whole canvas in one color and then you paint on top of that sort of a layer of something, texture, so then you can paint both direction, like light and dark. Here I kind of cheated and I added it after. It's no like absolute way shouldn't work. You know, just find your own way, and then you can break the rules. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you just find your system. Oh yeah, this is a little trick, like a projection, like little dots. I found a brush when I do digital painting that imitates that. I think it's a brush by someone named Derek Zabrocki, because it creates movements when you have dots, you know, projection like that. And so the horse is moving, maybe there's some dust, but often I will just do that as a texture thing, even if there's no dust, just because I like the texture and I like to break the clean brushes, if you will, the clean line. So yeah, it's you have to imagine this thing is moving, and everything that helps you make this move is always welcome. It's a kind of a physical thing, painting like that. Yeah, it's tiring, not physically tiring, but your brain kind of demands a lot of power. So yeah, after a while you need to stop and go and eat a ridiculous amount of food. That's what I do. Anyways, yeah, I don't drink or I don't smoke. I don't have any kind of particular vice or anything. Yeah, total respect if you do that. That's not for me to judge, but I'd like to eat decent food and yeah, hot tea and stuff like that, because when you're painting, your brain uses a lot of sugar and it needs the power. So I also tell that to my students, because I find that a lot of them don't eat well. They kind of eat all these sugary things. Like I said, you need sugar, but you actually need the food that lasts longer than just the fast sugar. So you know, the carbs, etc. Yeah, this is the place where I missed the. Well, I painted at university, so the yellow was painted at university, but you can see I created some depth underneath the horse. There's like the legs are darker at the front and lighter at the back. And then painting orange, yellow with a gradient, it kind of separates the character from the background, and it makes the movement more obvious. And then there's like grass that is going one way, and the horse is like jumping on top of the little thing, going on an adventure somewhere. And you see the hand holding the reins kind of works, you know, as a silhouette. It does create a nice thing that reads from a distance quite well. The importance of the silhouette is the thing also. Most paintings, when you succeeded, the silhouette is empty spaces between legs, between arms, things like that, and they need to work towards what you're showing the viewers. Like a lot of students, when they draw a character, sometimes their hands or their arms are like stuck to the bodies, or there's no separation. I always tell them, like, try a little bit of separation, make a little empty triangle there, and so it looks like nothing, but from a distance, it helps people read something. And if you do a film, it's always like that. It has to work in camera. Like, whatever you do, even if the action doesn't make sense, it needs to make sense as the viewer needs to see it really, really well. At the end, like, I'm adding a little bit of blue as a reflection. So you see my palette has been cleaned up. I just use paper and put paint on my paper and throw it away. So the paper I use is it's just a kind of this paper that I use for sketches or things like that. It's not expensive paper, and then so it's easier to kind of do it, and put a little bit of painting, not too much, enough that I can use what I'm going to use on that setting. If I need to, I'll add some more. But you can see that there's a red, a yellow, a white, a black, and two blues, the cerulean and the cobalt. And with that, I make pretty much all the colors. I like to keep my color quite intense, quite vivid, because I find it makes for nicer painting. So I'm not into the realm of super realism there. It's more like stylized. See the little bit of blue on the legs and the forehead of the horse, and then on the mane, and then the expression. Everything has to have life for me. So if I paint a tree, it will have a frank feel to it. It will not just be a tree from wherever. It will be a tree from my world. It will be reinterpreted. The way the tree end up looking will be sort of frankified, if you will. So this is closing in on the end there. I'm just gonna show you the final image, which is this. So I was quite happy, quite dynamic. This little kid, he's jumping with his horse. The proportions quite realistic, actually, in terms of the face and all that. It's not like extreme big eyes or whatever. The horse is a little bit more comical, but not so much as in too crazy. It's just very expressive. I had lots of fun putting a little tongue there, and then his teeth, and you see the right leg there, or his left leg has been elongated, repainted, and then that's the bottom. So created depth between the back legs and the front leg to create the distance, and that's it. I hope you enjoy this.